everyone? Welcome back to the Charter Podcast brought to you by st University. I'm Ruthie Polinsky here with the guys, 𝗂𝗏𝗏 and Alex Shapiro. And boy, do we have a lot to get to. The NFL Combine has come and gone for the 2025 season. We are still before the free agency window opens. The franchise tag window is currently open. It will close here shortly, but this episode today is going to focus mostly on the Combine. And there is a lot to get to because I think there were a lot of surprises, a lot of exciting moments, good and bad. So let's jump right into it. I think we can start a little bit with, we'll talk about the drills. We'll talk about the guys at the podium, some of the best sound bites we heard and how that affects, guys' draft stock in the full picture. So first of all, Clay, Alex, how we doing? Everyone have a good weekend?
Amazing weekend. Got visited by the in-laws. So the grandparents were playing with our very young son, which is always fun. It's always nice. They cooked us some nice meals, had good times with the fam. So it was a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, I did as well. Went to dinner at a Ruthie Polinsky recommendation on Friday. And it was actually very good. A couple too many carbs, couple glasses of wine, but it was good.
My favorite.
Yeah, relax, watch the Combine the rest of the weekend and just kind of hung out. But it was good. A lot of stuff to talk about today for sure.
Okay, perfect. So let's get right into it, Clay, because you're kind of our drill guy, should we say. Obviously, you're someone who has been through it all. You experienced it yourself. So let's talk about, I guess, sort of from let's go big down, right? So
yeah.
I think there's construction happening in the wall behind me. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Can hear that. Yeah,
okay.
I was like, who's stomping? Who's marching through your room?
We're going to power through. Let's talk about, Clay, the biggest stock jump from the weekend.
I think we have to start with first of all, yes, I have experience at the Combine. To me, there's a lot you can learn from the Combine. I think it shows you players that are dedicated to their craft, that are going to work hard, that are willing to compete, that aren't afraid to go out there and you put it on the line. You can see a lot of stuff in the field drills. You can see a lot of stuff in the explosiveness. I think it is a very important event, but we all got to remember that the tape does matter the most. But as far as just wow factor, and I know this guy has been out there for a while because these were the first guys to work out, but I think you got to start with Shemar Stewart and what he was able to do from that edge position. Obviously, that's a guy that me and Alex got to see down at the Senior Bowl, and he really stood out. And the question we all had was, a guy that looks like him, that runs like him, we knew he was athletic and big. As soon as we saw him at the Senior Bowl, why does this guy have 4.5 sacks in 3 years? But what you see he was able to do at the Combine, 4.59, a 1.56 split, which is most important for an edge rusher because you want to see that explosiveness, that get off. What are you doing in that first 10? His was super explosive for a guy that's 267 pounds and 6'5", a 10-10 broad jump and almost jumping 40 inches on the vertical jump. So he is a guy, firstly, that I wanted to point out as just a freak athlete compared to Myles Garrett. And we had a guy that big, that fast, he's going to garner some top 10 attention. I don't care who he is. We saw what happened with Trayvon Walker. We've seen in the past. He's got all the tools, but when you go back to the tape, as a NFL personnel man or as a defensive line coach or a defensive coordinator, you got to ask yourself, okay, why was this guy not productive? Was it because he was playing more of a read and react type system? Can you just kind of cut him loose? What did we see at the Senior Bowl? What kind of mentality does he have? So Shemar Stewart would have to be my first guy that jumped off the tape when I was watching the Combine.
Sure. And, this was a setup for Shemar Stewart to really show out. So he did exactly what he needed to do, which is show everybody, yes, my measurables, my numbers, all of that stuff lines up with the athleticism that everybody drools over. So he did what he had to do. You're going to have the questions about the productivity, but if he didn't do what he did, there would be even more questions. It's like, hey, you're supposed to be this athletic freak and you didn't put up the numbers. So he absolutely checked that box. In terms of just guys running the 40s and stuff like that. I'll say a center, Jared Wilson out of Georgia, ran really fast, 4.84, 40-yard dash for an offensive lineman for a center, real good. It's obviously athletic centers are in high demand. So I thought, running sub 5 is impressive for an offensive lineman to go 4.84. Well, I had it here, 98th percentile among all offensive linemen since 1999. So from a pure, combine drill moment, I think that's a stock up for Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia.
No, love Jared Wilson. And the thing that most impressed me about his workout was, once again, I go to those 10-yard dashes. He ran a 1.71.10 at 6'3", 310 pounds. I mean, this guy can come off the ball. In the drills, he looked great. In college, you go back to his tape, he's got some good tape. This guy might have moved up into day 2 from maybe a day 3 guy, and there's not many centers out there. He gave up 0 sacks and 967 career snaps. A guy like that, I would say bring in a veteran center for Chicago. But if a guy like Jared Wilson's there, the athleticism's there, you see him on the drill work. This guy can pull. He can run a zone scheme. He can do a lot of good things. Give me that guy and let him learn. Obviously, you want a veteran center to pair with a young quarterback. But I agree with you there, Alex, on Jared Wilson. Impressive day.
Okay, good stuff from both of you. I'm curious, who showed the best raw athleticism this past weekend, guys? Like, was there a player that jumped out at you as, holy smokes, I did not believe what I just saw in terms of just the pure athleticism and whether that, will translate onto a football field? Who blew you away, Clay?
I'm going to go somewhere with this, and I don't know if you guys are going to follow me here or not, but I'm going to go with a big boy, because when you say that this guy's athletic for the lay person, you think, okay, this guy runs a 4.9. How's this guy that athletic? When you're a massive human and you're able to move a certain way, especially for an offensive lineman, it is very impressive, and especially to me, knowing how difficult that is for these offensive linemen. But I'm going to go with a guy that helped his stock as much as anyone, but I don't think got talked about enough. And this is a guy I think the Bears could realistically draft at 10, and that is 𝗻𝗲 𝗵𝗶, offensive tackle / guard from Missouri. The guy weighs in at 333 pounds, was 6'4". He ran a 4.91 40 time. He had a 9.7 broad jump, tops among offensive line. This guy's weighing 333 pounds, almost jumping 10 foot, and then he jumps a 34-inch vertical. Okay, that's freakish. 30 career starts, 33-inch arms, which shows me that he can play tackle. You got, obviously, Will Campbell, the 32-inch arms. That was concerning. He had good feet. He ran well, but Will Campbell's going to have to be a guard. 32-inch arms. I mean, this guy's T-Rex. I'm sorry. I think he's going to be a great guard. I think Will Campbell would be a fine pick, but you got to move him inside 𝗻𝗲 𝗵𝗶 if you're really looking for a offensive tackle. He showed athleticism. He has great film, great tape. He's only 20 years old. So for me, a guy like 𝗻𝗲 𝗵𝗶, who didn't allow a single sack in 411 pass blocking snaps at Missouri in 2024, stock up. If he's there at 10, I would not be opposed to the Bears drafting this guy.
That's a name I don't know if a lot of people were familiar with heading into this draft. And it's definitely a name that popped this weekend because of the athleticism that he showed. So yeah, it's good stuff. It's interesting. You wonder kind of, all of the maybe intangibles, what do those look like? But it feels like the tangibles, maybe the coachability, how could you, really coach this guy up? Obviously coming from Mizzou, who you're going up against quality opponents pretty much every week. Like, that's someone I think people got familiar with this past weekend if you're a Chicago Bears fan. I also want to get to, guys, some of the questions about, what were the best sound bites this weekend? Who were the guys that really showed you their personality and won the crowd, won the press conference? Because that's a really big part, I think, for a lot of these guys who are doing sort of college setting press conferences for so long to, for the first time, get in front of NFL media and really sort of showcase who they are, what's their personality, what's their work ethic, what drives them, what's their chip on their shoulder. And Alex, I know you got to listen to a bunch of these guys over the course of the week. So I'm curious, Alex, if you have someone that stood out to you, who had the best command of the podium this weekend?
Totally. I'm going to go with Tyler Booker, the interior offensive lineman from Bama. And I agree with you. It's important because for a lot of these players, they're having tons of meetings with NFL teams. And NFL teams are assessing how they can interact with them, right? They're drilling them on plays and, getting to know them as people. So these interview settings matter, right? As teams set up their draft boards, if the tape is really close, if the measurables are really close, they might go on to the character stuff, the personal stuff, the things that they learned about him in those rooms. And to me, Tyler Booker was a guy who just got it. Talking about becoming a captain. So I asked him about what it meant to be a captain for Bama his last year, and then how he leads, because obviously the Bears are going to be looking for a new crop of leaders as they go from a younger team to a, moving forward with Caleb Williams. And he said, honestly, being a captain at Bama meant the world to me based on who were the captains that came before me. He mentioned guys like Will Anderson, guys like Bryce Young, and how much he learned from them and developed his own leadership style. And then, I thought it was a pretty mature answer, and it's something that we hear a lot from a lot of coaches, where he basically said, I don't have one leadership style. What's key for me is I need to learn my teammates. I need to become really good friends. I need to develop really strong relationships with my teammates so I know how to lead them. And it is clear that he was a vocal leader, that when something, if he saw something, he would say something. That's what came across to me. And basically saying, I knew that there were some guys where I had to say, dude, come on, you can't do that, do better, and give them a little tough love. Some guys, you got to pick them up and pat them on the back and say, hey, don't worry about that one. We're going to need you this next drive, and you're going to come through for us again. So that understanding, that maturity, and how seriously he took being a captain, and the way he spoke about it really, really impressed me, as this is a young man who gets it and is probably going to make his next locker room better.
It's a good, that's a good question you asked. And since we're talking about Tyler Booker, Ruthie, that was going to be one of my fallers as far as the combine's concerned. So I loved him on the podium and what he stood for and like his attitude. But I will say athletically, he kind of pigeonholed him into a specific kind of an offense, right? Just because if you're running his outside zone scheme, just seeing his movement skills on the field, obviously the number stuff, he's not going to be able to run an outside zone, a side to side. He's going to be good for an offense that runs a lot of gap scheme, which is more downhill stuff for the layperson. You want to run downhill. You want him to just move someone out the club, throw him out the club, Alex. I was a bouncer back in college, and I used to have to throw people out the club. Yeah, true story, Ruthie. I was a bouncer. But he had a 7'10" broad jump, which was in the 14th percentile among guards. 5'3", 840. That's slow. 8-second 3-cone drill, 4.84 short shuttle, 27-inch vertical, 45th percentile. Perhaps the biggest red flag was the 1.96 10-yard dash, which isn't fast at all. So not athletic. Big guy, strong, right mental makeup. I think he's still going to go on the end of the round one, but there's a specific offense that this guy's meant for, and it is not the Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson.
I love that you said that you mentioned the run schemes. I believe Eric Edholm asked him, what's your favorite run concept? And to your point, you're all over it. He said, duo all the way, baby. He was like 3rd and 2, those types of gotta have it moments. He's like, I would do just about everything except get on the headset and say run duo.
Oh yeah, you got to run behind him for those. Absolutely.
Exactly. Because he said me and the left tackle, we would just gang up on guys. And, 3rd and 2, we wanted the ball run behind us in this duo concept. And it's exactly what you're saying. It ain't that outside zone stuff. It is, let me move you out of the way and let's just get 2 yards right behind me, which is obviously, super different than, what Braxton Jones is doing, getting out in space, blocking for DJ Moore on jet sweeps.
It's good stuff. we're going to continue this sort of Oscar-themed award ceremony, guys, on this Monday after the Oscars, because I'm curious who you would give the award to for the best command. I'm sorry, for the best answer to the hardest question that you heard this weekend.
Okay, for this, I am going to go Will Campbell of LSU, because the big question with him is, hey, dude, you got short arms, and can you play tackle in the NFL? And you could tell that, he seemed, I don't want to say miffed or fed up, but he's like, yeah, I know you're going to ask me about this, but I don't see it as an issue. And the way he framed it was like, listen, teams are talking to me like a tackle. Will the guard stuff come up? Yes. And if it comes between me being a backup tackle or a starting right guard, I'm going to want to be a starting right guard. So that, first and foremost, I'm happy to play guard. But he goes, my resume speaks for itself. Go watch my tape. Watch my tape. There will not be a single play in which I give up a sack or I give up a negative sack, and you will go, oh, he gave that up because he has short arms. Where, he kind of stood his ground and was like, listen, I know I have short arms. I game plan around it. I prepare around it. I know how to overcome it. I've played with these arms my whole life, was essentially the gist of his answers, and just being like, I still think I'm an elite left tackle. Watch my tape. It speaks for itself.
This guy plays in the SEC, and I'm one of the guys that are like, I just said, I'm 32-inch arms. I'm talking about Membu, how he had longer arms. He's in the 10th percentile. I know that's something like if you're in the bottom 5% of people playing tackle in the history of the game, and with your size and your arm length, not his size, but his arm length. But this guy played in the SEC. It's not like you're trying to project too much here. He's playing against Alabama. He's playing against the best teams in the country. He's playing against Georgia. He's playing against the number one pass rushers in football, and he's handling these guys. He played against Shamar Stewart. Watch that game. I watched all the pass rush reps against Shamar Stewart. Guess what? Shamar Stewart didn't touch a quarterback. And that's a guy that has the arm length, that has all the traits. And Will Campbell, with his quote-unquote T-Rex arms, everybody's saying he's got, he handled them. So to me, he has a point there. He played against the best players. And the one thing I was impressed with, and I'm always taking this back to the drill, because I'm a drill guy. Just check out my combine numbers, Ruthie. In the 10-yard dash, I'm going back to these 10s for offensive linemen. He got up to 16.47 miles per hour, according to Next Gen Stats. That was number one among all offensive linemen. This guy has some acceleration. You could pull. You could do a lot of different things. This guy is built for outside zone. He's built for inside zone. He can do a lot of different things. So I think he is a guy that would play well on the Chicago Bears, showed a lot of athletic ability, the 40, the 10. I think this guy, yes, his short arms, but I wouldn't feel bad about the pick because he does have that versatility, and he played in the SEC.
Okay, I like it, Clay, and we will all be reminded forever of your combine performance. And I'm not mad about it. I wonder, Clay, was there a standout skill position player? Not saying that the Bears are necessarily in the market for one, but who would you say really stood out to you this weekend, someone that maybe you didn't expect?
Okay, I'm a cheat because I'm going to just name two guys. One guy very briefly because all he did was run the 40. But Matthew Golden.
Two people can't win an Oscar. Two people can't win an Oscar.
Okay. I'll go with my guy.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. I'll just shout out Matthew Golden real quick because this guy ran 4.29 from Texas. And it made me go back and watch his Texas tape. And I'm like, wow, this guy can actually play. So Matthew Golden, he just ran, might as well just ran out the building and waited for the draft. Because if you hit that 4.2 number, you did some things. And Matthew Golden jumped up in the end of the first round for me. But a guy that I was very impressed with, I don't think he falls into round two, the 39-41 range, Omarion. I'm not talking about the singer. I'm not talking about B2K here. I'm talking about Omarion Hampton. This guy overtook Ashton Jeanty as my number one running back. Okay, I watched the combine. I go, okay, who is this guy? Obviously he's getting some first-round buzz. Go watch the tape. This guy reminds me of Saquon Barkley, and I know I'm saying some crazy stuff right here. He played at North Carolina. Let me just talk about some of these numbers. 4.46, 38-inch vertical, a 10-10 broad jump. He had 1,660 yards last year, but this guy is explosive. He breaks tackles all over the field. He's elusive. He can catch the football. And to pair that combine with the numbers and stuff, this guy might go top 15. He might be the first running back taken. Omarion Hampton. If the Bears took a running back, I would rather see them take him over Ashton Jeanty. This guy is just a complete player. He's a future star. I will put my stamp on that. And that was the skill player besides the 40-yard that Matthew Golden ran that really stood out to me.
Omarion Hampton is a player. I mean, you mentioned the yards. We have to talk more about the yards. In the past 2 seasons, 3,164 rushing yards, 595 receiving yards, 30 rushing touchdowns, and 3 receiving touchdowns. Dude can play football.
That's a statement, though, Clay. To jump above Ashton Jeanty, that's saying something.
Ruthie, I'll send you just the highlight tape. I'm telling you, this guy is incredible. He brings it every play. He's just a guy that, to me, looking at him, if he stays healthy, obviously depends on where you go and being in the right spot. But I don't see how he's not going to be successful.
Cool. That's what the combine's for, right? That's why we play the game. Okay, guys, let's get into the best positions, the best players you saw at each position. Really full picture. Could be, how they were at the podium combined with the drills. It could be simply on the field. I'll let you specify, but I'm curious, who do you believe after this past weekend is the best defensive lineman in the draft?
I'm going to go a guy that I think has the most upside. I think he's got a lot of maturing to do as far as on the field, but I think you go back and watch his tape, you can see some special things there, and he really showed me that he has some talent, and that's James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. He ran a 4.47. He's 6'5", 245. He jumped well in the broad jump. And I go back and I watch some of his film, and you've been hearing some first-round buzz there, but I think James Pierce is a guy, after Abdul Carter obviously didn't perform, Mike Green, I was looking forward to him at the combine, didn't perform. But James Pierce Jr., as far as a D lineman, obviously we're talking about Shamar Stewart, and James Pierce is a more athletic, lanky, quick guy. He's not as big as maybe the Bears would like with Dennis Allen, but James Pierce, the guy is going to be a player. If you're running a 4.4 at 6'5", 250 pounds, that's very impressive. Blocking those big explosive guys is not easy. He's going to be a good pass rusher. He played at Tennessee. He played against good competition. He had solid years as junior. He's had production multiple years. It's also something that's important. Is this guy a 1 year flash in the pan, or has he had success in multiple years? He's had multiple years of success. So I like, from D-line, James Pierce Jr.
I'm going to stick with the podium stuff. And I want to talk about, if we're talking defensive line, Donovan Ezaraku, who is a defensive end, Boston College. Again, confidence just really came through, where he's like, I know how good I am. I'm excited to showing everybody how good I am. I'm a first-round talent. I'm going to have a bright future in front of me. It's like, okay, man, I believe you. And then speaking with some of his teammates, the guys who lined up against him, like 𝗦𝗏cie 𝗄𝗏, they're all like, yo, Donovan is the real deal on the field and also a great dude in the locker room. So really, he was a guy who was at the Senior Bowl, but I'm going to be fully honest, like, he didn't catch my eye, my list, whatever. We kind of focus in on our guys here and there. He wasn't a dude that I was super laser focused on. But after talking with so many people at the podium and so many of these Golden Eagles, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look more at this, more at his tape, because he was so impressive at the podium and so many people had nice things to say, even opponents, talking about, hey, because the question gets asked, who's the toughest guy you went up against here or there? And I'm going to look up his pronunciation so I get it again. Donovan 𝗍𝗏𝗂. I feel bad. We're going to learn your pronunciations before too long, everybody. There's a lot of players. Donovan 𝗍𝗏𝗂, he got a lot of love from a lot of both teammates and opponents.
Yes, I love Donovan 𝗍𝗏𝗂. He's not the biggest guy in the world, 6'2", 248. His long arms, though, 34-inch arms, and vertical jump wasn't great, 35. Broad jump wasn't great, didn't quite get to 10, but he had a great 3-cone drill, 6'9", great short shuttle, 4'1", 22 reps from the bench press. But he's a guy, when you do go turn on this film, 16.5 sacks last year. And I mean, he's just dominant off the edge. He's not the biggest guy. He's not imposing. He didn't put up great numbers, but he is a guy that can just play football. And like you said, Alex, you talk to anybody, hear anybody talk about him, the guy can play. He's crafty. He's got a full bag of pass rush moves. I'm a big fan of him as well.
All right. After the 2025 Combine, who is the best offensive lineman in the draft?
Ooh, this one's tough, but I mean, it's tough to go against. I mean, we've already talked about him, but Will Campbell, I think, is number one. I mean, still, you just watch the tape, just because we've already talked about him. A guy that I think really helped himself out a lot was 𝗬𝗏𝗟𝗏. I think I said that right. He's massive, right? He's a guy that he's going to play tackle. He can play right tackle. He can play left tackle. He helped himself as much as anybody. 6'6", 331 pounds. The only other two players to ever run a 40 at sub 5.05 seconds at 330 plus pounds is Darnell Wright and Membou, the guy we just talked about. And Darnell Wright's obviously a Bear. So freak athlete, big guy, long arms. Really think he helped himself a lot. And just what we're seeing, this offensive line crop performed very well. And I think that fits in with the Bears' needs. Is obviously there's a lot of offensive linemen there. If you miss out on Will Campbell, I think you still got a lot of options. 𝗬𝗏𝗟𝗏 is obviously a guy that I think can play and will be a good tackle in this league.
I'm going to zig a little bit and maybe go out on a little bit of a limb. We've talked about a lot of offensive tackles. We have not talked about this guy very much, but his early tape was extremely impressive. And I thought, again, he was extremely impressive at the podium in talking with him a little bit. That's Josh Simmons from Ohio State. He had a pretty devastating injury that cut his season short, but took an enormous leap from 2023 to 2024 early in the year, where there was a lot of buzz coming around this guy. And then obviously season's cut short. He said that his rehab is ahead of schedule, that things are going really, really well. And I believe his hope is to do stuff at his pro day, which is going to be in April. So obviously the medicals are a big issue. You need the medicals to check out. You don't want a repeat of the Karan Amegadjie situation where you draft a dude who you know is hurt and maybe he's on schedule and then he's not in training camp. So you got to get the clear medicals. But again, without seeing him at the combine, without him doing a lot of football, he was on track to put together a great season. And the way he spoke frankly about the frustrations of being injured, how he's attacking rehab with this relentless ferocity, how he attacked the offseason to get better from 2023 to 2024, basically saying every single resource I had available to me at Ohio State University, like I went everywhere. I spoke to everyone. I did everything I could to get better. And I was seeing those results. And that's why it was so frustrating. And then again, all of his teammates were like, Josh Simmons is the man. We love that guy. So I have my eye on Josh Simmons, especially if those medicals check out and he's good to go. If he puts on a big pro day, he could be a guy who all of a sudden is factoring in with these top offensive tackles.
I know this comes with a sort of an asterisk because a lot of the information is coming from player agents, right? But like everything that we heard from the combine, in Rappaport, I know how to report saying everything's on track. He's going to go first round. He's going to be healthy, but, and he's still a first round pick, despite the injury. Everything that we've heard has been very positive about his recovery and his rehab and the pace he is on to be ready to go for 2025. So I think that that is worth noting. With that asterisk, obviously you want to take it with a grain of salt and let the Bears get their hands on them and sort of see what it all looks like.
No, great.
Clay, did you have a best
like it. No, I mean, that patella tendon, I think, is that was the injury, right? That's a tough one. Yeah. It's not an ACL, but if he shows out as his pro day, the guy's film is as good as anybody in this class. Yeah. And if you're confident that the medicals check out, you can't go wrong with Josh Simmons either.
All right, guys, let's wrap this up real quick. I want to get your thoughts on whether or not anything that happened this weekend changes your draft wish list for the Chicago Bears. And I think it is hard. I'll give a little nugget. I think it's so hard to give our wish list for the draft before free agency because you want to see what they can take care of in free agency and what needs they can fill there first. But let's just say your draft wish list, based off what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, has that changed at all since the combine? And it's okay to say no.
I'll say mine has a little bit. I think that Mason Graham is a guy that realistically now could be available at 10. And that's because he came in, they said he was 320, he was 296, and he wasn't running, he wasn't doing any of the events. So he's chugging water. Like, trust me, when you're trying to weigh in heavier, you're chugging water. Like, this guy's probably walking around at 285, but I don't care. He's a player. You watch, and I know Ruthie loves him because he's a Michigan man. But this guy can play. He's mean. He's nasty. He's got that wrestling background. Yeah, he's small. He's got small arms. The guy can play football. And you want to what polls say? You want to dent the pocket. You want to, he says something along those lines in the middle of the pocket, right? So you can obviously get more pressure from your edge rushers, and they can, when they're making it around the edge, you have to make the quarterback can't step up into a clean pocket. Mason Graham's a guy that can do that. And I realistically think he can be there now because he did measure in so small. So to me, he might be a realistic option that the Bears can take there at 10. Will Campbell, I'm not sure if he'll be there, but now you got a number of offensive tackles. So I'd go Mason Graham to, if Will Campbell's gone, then Armand Membou and then Ariante 𝗬𝗠cy are some guys that I realistically think the Bears could walk away with from this draft and be very happy to fill positions of need.
I think it has changed for me in the sense that there are a lot more guys who are intriguing that, I didn't frankly know about, that I still needed to do work on. Membou is one of these buzzy guys who 2 months ago, am I looking at Armand Membou the same way that I'm looking at him now? No, I frankly wasn't. So in that sense, if there's a cloud of players that are still there, if the Mason Grahams of the world, the, Will Campbell's of the world, if they're off the board, there's not this big run on quarterbacks. And there are still quarterbacks on the board at 10, and the Bears have, like I said, a cloud of players still available. Maybe my thinking has changed. Hey, do you trade back out of 10, which the Bears have done now? They've traded back several times. Move back a few spots, get a few more picks. Let that QB run happen in your zone, because if there's still a Membou, if there's still a Kelvin Banks, if there's still a handful of players that you're comfortable with, maybe you move back. That's maybe been a little change in my thinking, because before it was like, hey, go get the blue chip guy who's there. If it's an offensive tackle, if it's a defensive edge, whoever your blue chip guy is there at 10, go grab them. But if you've got a handful of players graded similarly, because there have been a lot of intriguing guys, a lot of stock has gone up, the Mike Greens of the world, right? Hey, maybe move back, pick up a few more picks, and then make your pick.
The quote of the weekend to me, guys, and to hype up Clay for a minute, was Mason Graham telling 𝗪cie Dales, let me check my notes, I just want to leave my mark being not just great on the field, but being a good person. Like, come on. You won the day. Yeah, it's just, you want people like that. And I think, obviously, it's someone who has a lot of experience, has won a lot of football games, has been through adversity on the field and off the field. I know he kind of was injured, but sort of early in the season for Michigan. But it's a guy who's a leader. It's someone who has kind of helped, Michigan's defense this past season, I think, was a little rocky. The changeover of the head coach, all of the things that came with the transition of Jim Harbaugh leaving and JJ McCarthy leaving. But the defense sort of was what you counted on to be sort of that to maintain. And Michigan's defense started off the year pretty rocky, and the trajectory only went up. So I think, it's cool to hear a guy like Mason Graham sort of stand out, and obviously the measurables. And Clay, you could probably speak to this too. Like, did he lose weight, like training for the 40? Like, was he, when you're not playing and you're not in the building, eating the meals, you're maybe just a little bit, he can get back to 315 or whatever it might be. No problem. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he can definitely gain some weight, put on some weight. But even if he doesn't, like, he played Big Ten at Michigan. Once again, the tape is what matters most. And if measuring in makes this guy drop to 10, measuring in a little bit small, and he's not the prototypical interior defensive lineman, perfect for where the Bears are right now. Because if he falls to 10, this guy's a difference maker in the middle of that line. It could be a guy along the lines of like a Tommy Harris type player. He's that good, I think. And I don't care that he's undersized and smaller arms.
Good stuff, guys. Alex and Clay, great stuff from the combine, great stuff from everything you do. We're going to keep breaking this down on Wednesday. We'll talk about free agency. We'll keep playing this game about what are the Chicago Bears going to look like in 2025 until September. So it's been great to chat with you both. And it's been great to connect with our listeners. As we always, thank you for listening to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. We will see you later this week.